Welcome back to Atara's series on dining with people from the Bible as we explore today how Jesus modeled the potluck dinner in his ministry and how the early house churches actually continued that tradition. I'm Jonathan Watt with Atara Group International. We hope you are enjoying our series, and if you are, please press the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. When we're drawn into a friendship, it's only natural that we spend time with that person, and when we become really close friends, we may do that quite often. Yet in recent years, the decline of the potluck dinner churches has been quite the topic of research and articles. One author called it the potluck problem, another has called it more than a potluck. What these researchers and authors have come to understand is something the early church leaders seem to have known intuitively. The decline of potluck meals together reflects a weakening of a community. Potlucks could be considered biblical. Theologian Marcus Barth once said that 1/5 of all of Jesus' words were spoken around meals. While John Dominic Crossan stated that if one were to watch a day in the life of Jesus, he would mostly see him healing and eating. Some scholars have even proposed that the entire organization of Luke's gospel may have been done around meals and mealtimes. Jesus actually performed much of his redeeming work from a dinner table. Many of his parables were told from a dinner table. Also, a number of metaphors in the Bible liken a dinner table to the kingdom of God. So the house churches in the book of Acts, as well as the more Gentile churches later on introduced in the epistles, worshiped and functioned around the dinner table. They were modeling their worship on Jesus' own habits. So for example, during the Last Supper, Jesus took the annual Passover celebration and turned it into a vision for how worship should be conducted. He went from one dinner setting and modified it to a new direction. He told his disciples to continue to do what he had been modeling for them. He wanted them to continue to gather the poor and even strangers to their tables and to remember Christ even more than remembering the escape from Egypt. From the model of his ministry all the way to the Last Supper, Jesus embedded the gospel into the dinner table. And his disciples were obviously paying attention, and they passed Jesus' vision at the dinner and of the dinner worship and potluck dinners onto the followers. The dinner tables and discussions of the first Christians usually revolved around the most recent theological topics. The implication of this is that their belief was not just focused on one day per week, but was part of their daily lives and worthy of serious reflection. Worship and church services happened around tables of food at dinner times, and the life of the first congregation and even their approach to evangelism was through the shared resources of what was available at the dinner table. So the first era of the Christian church during the time of the writing of the New Testament took place primarily around dinner tables. With Jesus' own life as an example, it should be no surprise that those early churches were founded in and they grew in comfortable home surroundings and naturally often at meal times. It's interesting, even pagan critics of the early church actually complained that Christians were so successful in spreading the gospel message because much of it occurred oriented around the kitchens of the homes where the gatherings and the discussions were taking place. So during the first roughly 3 centuries of the faith, when Christian gatherings were geared around dinners, it has been estimated by some scholars that the church grew from maybe some tens of thousands in those very, very early years, perhaps to over 20 million believers just a few centuries later as the empire more officially Christianized. It's clear that the first followers of Christ adopted his style of fellowship with other believers, and these congregations spent a great deal of time together sharing meals and other resources. They found a natural camaraderie with each other that tended to weave hearts and minds together over food. They became quote, one in spirit. And it happened that day by day, as described in the second chapter of Acts, these things were going on. They were taking their meals together, it says, with gladness and sincerity of heart. So that same kind of picture shows up yet again a few chapters later in Acts chapter 6 with reference to the daily serving of tables, which either referred to food or possibly financial resources. There's a phrase also in 1 Corinthians 5 about celebrating the feast, and while this seems to reference the sacrament of the Lord's Supper in particular, it's helpful to know that this was often taken in the context of a fellowship meal. Now, the Greek word agape, which means love or to love, came to apply to meals in the early church, of no surprise here, as they became known as agape feasts. They were like potluck dinners, as we call them today, and occurred in different settings, from home to perhaps church fellowship locations to sometimes public places. When people eat together, they create an opportunity to just enjoy and encourage and open up hearts and souls and show appreciation for each other. So many believers today share such meals, possibly the best known being the traditional potluck dinners, which are held usually at churches. There are entire cookbooks, actually, that are dedicated to dishes that help people prepare for such dinners. What better way to experience your church family than through shared meals and wonderful food prepared with love? I've been known to invite friends and family members to a potluck at a church because it's a wonderful way to share the love of Christ and the gospel with someone else. So if you haven't been at a potluck dinner in a while, you might ask yourself, why? Am I too busy, or is it just that my church is not having them? And maybe you could ask your church leaders if you could organize the next one. And for who doesn't like a good meal with friends? We hope this kind of connection is something that will be a lively part of your own experience. We're moving on fairly soon to our new series on mental health, and if you have particular topics under that heading that you would like us to explore, please let us know and make comments down in the comments box, and we'll be eager to see what you have there. Thank you.